have a lot to say about this foundation, so we're just going to hop right in because I have no makeup on my face except for eye makeup and a little bit of corrector, and I am really itching to kind of change that fact. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we are talking about the new to Nordstrom. I don't think it's brand new. I think Chanel.com has had it for a while, but the Chanel Sublimage Teint Ultimate Radiance Generating Cream Foundation. Now, it comes in packaging like this. I am in the shade 40 Beige. I determined that because A, that is what I am in the Vita Lumiere Aqua, and B, I purchased this through Mel at Puffin's Wife, and she was gracious enough to send me swatches side by side, so I determined that that was my color. Now, it comes in a box like this, very gold, very bougie, very Chanel. You open it up, and it has a book, not a pamphlet, not a, I don't know, page. I mean, it's a full-on book. Now, granted, the reason it is because it comes in like 15 different languages, but it's basically telling you what the foundation is. Now, Sublimage is a skincare line from Chanel, and it is the most luxurious skincare line. I mean, you're going to pay hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for some of these skincare products. So they are claiming that they took the skincare that is famous in the Sublimage line and added it to a radiant foundation. It says that they have incorporated intense vanilla planifolia water into this exceptional foundation, used to preserve the skin's quality, giving added strength and vitality. This water is developed using a delicate artisanal technique to preserve all the integrity and power of this precious ingredient. For the first time, Chanel has included diamond powder in one of its foundations. Encapsulated in silicone beads and combined with synthetic mica, the diamond powder reflects light in a spectacular way. Sublimage Teint offers incomparable radiance. So we shall see. So once you get through all of that, you open the flap that the book was on and you actually have the product. Now, the product does come with a spatula because it is in a pot. Now, this is a very luxurious, very weighted, very, you know, Chanel-like pot. However, if I'm spending, have I even told you, $135 on a foundation, I kind of want it to have a pump. Like, I don't know. That's just something that, I mean, I get where they're going from this. I think they're kind of trying to make it look like the skincare line, but I much prefer to have a pump. Now, Tennessee has the whopping 9.25% tax. So I spent almost $150 on this when it was all said and done. I want a pump. That's all I'm going to say. I want a pump. Now, they do include this nice little plastic spatula, but I want a pump, okay? So we're just going to get past that. I do use the spatula, but still. They also include this brush. Now, this is not a throwaway brush that you get in like an eyeshadow palette where you know upon first touch and glance that you're never going to use it. This is a very nice, very sturdy synthetic brush. It is a short handle, which some people are not going to like, and I will get more into it in the demo because I have used it. However, do I kind of wish that they maybe wouldn't charge $135 for the foundation and not include a brush? Yes. Do I think that if they didn't include a brush, they would still charge $135 for the foundation? Yes. So it's a nice little add-on either way. So all I have on my skin is my corrector and my primer. I've used the YSL Touche Éclat Blur Primer. I have tested this out for like 4 or 5 days. I do have notes. I'll go over that at the end once I have it on, but right now we're just going to test it out. So open it up. It does come with like a little plastic piece, but this is the foundation. It looks like a gel almost, and it kind of feels like a gel. It is thick. This is shade 40. I feel like it has a little bit more peach in it than I personally prefer in my foundations, but it works nonetheless. So we're going to start out on this side of my face, and I'm going to do a close-up side-by-side comparison to see how it looks versus nothing at all. So we're going to do this side. I'm not really red today. I don't have a ton to cover. I'm going to take this spatula, and what's funny is, let me get to the part where they suggest how you use it. Of course, they suggest you use it with all the Sublimage skincare, but it says apply Sublimage Teint with the spatula, dabbing a small amount onto each cheek with the spatula, and then using the brush in outward motions. I'm sorry, but isn't the whole point of sanitary stuff for it to not be placed on anything? Like, I don't know. I know that it doesn't really matter. It's my skin. I'm not using it on anything else. But I prefer to have clean washed hands and put it on my hands and then apply it to my face. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take out probably about this much foundation, which you will see. One of the things I'm not a huge fan of is that I do feel like you have to use more than other foundations. But that's what we're going to start with on this side of my face. So here's the deal with that little brush. I've tried it. I don't like it. I have tried it with other brushes that I'll talk about when we're done that I did like, but I don't like this one. It's just kind of streaky. And it's not quite dense enough to work for me. So what I've felt like works the best is to apply it with my fingers, just a little bit, kind of rub it in, and then go over with my sponge and kind of just press it in. And I'm gonna totally screw up my brows. I just know it, but we can fix it. And I have flyaway hairs because this fan is on because it's 90 degrees outside. I'm over the hot weather already and it's not even July yet. I have tried to apply this going straight into the product on my hand and applying it with a beauty blender. It's so thick that I find when I do that, it's almost too tacky and I apply way too much product. So I feel like when you use your hand first, you're gonna get the best result because you're not gonna overdo it. Okay, so I want you to see, this is with the foundation. This is without the foundation. So I do have a little bit of redness. I can still see the redness down here. So I would say this is a light to medium coverage foundation, and medium might be pushing it. I'm just gonna put a little bit more down here over my redness. I mean, maybe a light medium. I don't think you're gonna get more than that. This is not going to be like an Estee Lauder Double Wear or anything like that. It's just not what it is. It's not what it claims to be either. It claims to be a radiant foundation. On that point, when it says you're gonna have incomparable radiance, do you see much of a difference on this side of my face as far as radiance as this side? There is a slight sheen. Okay, I do not think this is a luminous foundation. I almost wouldn't even say it's like a radiant foundation. I just kind of feel like it gives a satin finish. And that's why I kind of wanted to, have you see these two sides. So that is that. It didn't blur my pores. It doesn't really claim to blur pores, but they're not exactly exaggerated either. So I'm going to speed up doing my other side, finish up my makeup, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so this is me with the rest of my makeup on. I kind of apparently wanted to go real smoky on my eyes today, but I'm gonna zoom you in because I want you to see the foundation up close. So everything blended out fine, like cream products on top of it. That was fine. I feel like it's still a satin finish. I don't really feel like it's necessarily radiant. And it's not really settling in. Of course, I haven't had it on for that long, but that is what it looks like up close. So it is not, like I said, accentuating my pores. It's not really blurring them any more than it was, or any more than they were before the primer was on. But now, as always, when I want to do an extensive foundation review, I do take a lot of notes. So I did. And I have 4 days worth of notes, and I'm gonna kind of try to go a little bit like fast on it because I don't want this to be a hugely long video, and I want to get to my final thoughts on the foundation. But the first day I did only wear it for 8 hours. I wore the Cover FX blurring primer and the Chanel powder, and I believe I filmed some kind of video on that day, so you can go back. I don't remember which one it was, but I do remember filming a video on that day, so you can see kind of what it looks like on camera. A couple of y'all said that, commented on how my skin looked really good in that video and asked if I was going to be reviewing this foundation. So I did use the brush that came with it. I did use this on one side, and I used a beauty blender on the other side. This I wasn't a fan of. I ended up going over it with a sponge. And then the other side is that time where I said that I picked up the product on the beauty blender and applied, and it was very tacky. Like, it was almost like disgustingly thick when I put it on. So that's when I stopped doing that and applied it with my finger first, and then went over it with a sponge because it was just too much. It applied too much product that way. I did feel like it, like I said, was like a more satin finish. My biggest complaint, now I'm going to go ahead and tell you this because I feel like I wrote it on every single day. Well, let me just do this. I also wore it on the second day. Let me get through all this. The second day I did Dr. Brandt Pores No More and the Cover FX Perfect Setting Powder. I had it on that day for 10 hours. I used the YSL Primer and the By Terry Powder, and I had it on for 11 hours. And then I used my Lancer Danny Skin Perfecting, the Illuminating Primer, and my By Terry Powder again. My biggest issue with this foundation is I feel like it will, throughout the day, start to cake around just this section of my nose and kind of emphasize my pores. I have tried on day 2, day 3, day 4, and today to not put as much powder there as normal to see if that will help, and it didn't really help. And that's like the part where most of us need the most powder if we're going to powder our face, because that's where our pores are and that's where we produce oil and sweat and stuff. So I didn't find that it really made that much of a difference. I just felt like when I looked in the mirror at the end of the day that it was very pronounced right here. And it looked like I had a lot more foundation on than I actually did. That is probably my biggest complaint with this foundation, because it was a constant through the 4 and 5 days that I tried it. It was something that did not go away. Like, I could not find a primer that changed that fact, a powder that changed that fact, an amount that changed that. It didn't matter. Like, it happened every single day. On the first day, I do felt like I used too much, and I felt like maybe that was the reason that it was caking. So the second day, I did not use as much, and I used a different brush. You'll probably be hearing more about this brush in an upcoming favorites video for July, I'm assuming, because I love it. It's the It Brushes for Ulta Airbrush Blurring Foundation Brush. So, you know, it's just a regular kabuki, but some brushes perform better than others, and for me this one performs better. I did like it much better with this brush than I did the brush that it came, and I did not feel like it was that much of a difference between the brush and the Beauty Blender. This is my favorite brush with it, though. I did try a couple other brushes and this was just my favorite. I felt like it wasn't near as satin. I felt like it was almost more matte on the second day, and I think that probably was because of my Dr. Brandt Pores No More primer, which does mattify the skin. For some reason on this day and the third day, I felt like it was like reverse oxidization. Like, I will say this foundation does not oxidize, at least on me, but I almost sometimes feel like it gets lighter throughout the day, which I've never had a foundation do that, but I feel more pale looking throughout the day. I'm not exactly sure why, but I do. And I just, you know, I thought it enough to think that it warranted putting on my notes. I will say that it does not sink into lines. It does not sink into my smile lines. It does not sink into my little 11. It doesn't sink into any kind of line. So I will give it that. It does not do that. And then I put that it is still accentuating pores. I didn't have to touch it up or anything. I don't feel like I got too shiny with it from sweat or, you know, normal summer 90-degree heat type stuff. So that was the second day. The YSL primer and the By Terry powder were by far my favorite combination. I used it again with this brush on one side and the Beauty Blender fingers on the other side, and I felt like it wasn't that big of a difference. And this is when I decided to note that I do feel like I have to use a lot of the foundation, which I talked about in the demo. Kind of doesn't sit well with me considering it's so expensive. I feel like if I were to use this on a daily basis, I would go through it very quickly. Not something that, you know, obviously you want to do with a $135 foundation, but I did want to note that as well. I said on this that it was the best out of all the days, and that it was not as cakey at the end of the day. So I don't know if it was because of the powder or what. Every day that I did set it with powder, I used the Wayne Goss Blurring Airbrush brush. I've really been loving this for powder lately, so you can know that I'm not over applying powder, because I don't think it's possible for this brush to over apply powder. Just so you're not wondering, well, maybe it was cakey because you're putting too much powder. I did the very smallest amount of powder possible. At the end of day 3, which was my favorite day, don't forget that, I wrote right down here, still nothing special, frown face. I don't feel like this is worth $135. I don't think it's a bad foundation. I do appreciate the way that it makes my skin look, especially right at the beginning, like because it's not started to cake up or anything. I used a Clinique powder today, which I'm actually really enjoying. And I think it's going to work good with that. But here's the kicker. Here's why I sped up this side of my face. I did not use the Chanel foundation on this side of my face. I used a much more cost-effective foundation that I like just as much and more that I feel like is very similar to this foundation. And when I did a close-up, I don't feel like you could tell. Let me tell you what it is. My Philosophy Hope in a Jar Skin Tint. I feel like the textures are very similar. Remember, I had showed you and said it was like a gel texture. This is very similar to that gel texture of the Chanel. It's a little bit more lightweight. It's not as thick. I feel like the application for both of them are pretty much the same. I feel like if anything, the Chanel might have a stitch more coverage than the Philosophy, but I don't have to use as much Philosophy as I do the Chanel to get to a point where I'm comfortable with the coverage that it provides, if that makes sense. So if you can see Philosophy, Chanel. Now I will give credit to Chanel and tell you that on the day that the fourth day is when, was it the fourth day? Yeah, the fourth day is when I decided to do them side by side. And I did go, midday and ask Chad which side of my face looks better. Now, normally he's like, I don't know. And he was like, it's not that big of a difference, but I do feel like so-and-so side is a little bit smoother. And that was the Chanel side. So I will give the credit to the Chanel for that. However, this is the same amount of product as this. This is $135. This is $39. This claims to have skincare benefits. This claims to have skincare benefits. This has SPF 20. This doesn't. That's the main difference that I can find, honestly, between these two foundations. I sent a sample of the Chanel, or like a little jar, to one of my friends who also has the skin tint, and she says she likes the skin tint better too once she got it in the mail and tried it out. I just can't say that I would suggest spending $135 on this foundation. I don't think it's a bad foundation. So anybody out there who loves it or has seen reviews of people who love it, I'm not knocking this foundation. If I thought it was a bad foundation, I'd tell ya. I have no problems voicing my opinions on a bad foundation. I don't think it's a bad foundation. I just don't know that it's worth the $135 price tag. I think if you have this urge to like get something very luxurious and spendy with your makeup, I get that. I love luxury makeup. It's my favorite. I would suggest taking that $135 and getting a blush, getting a mascara, and getting the Vitalumiere Aqua foundation from Chanel. You can get all of that for probably, well, let's see, $40, $50, less than $135, like $10 less. So that's what I would suggest. Still get a foundation, but also get a blush and a mascara and something else great from Chanel and spend the same amount of money. And if you want something that has this similar finish, go back to my Philosophy Skin Tint review. I'll put it somewhere up here. And I would totally recommend spending $39 on that, especially when many a times you can get 20% off at Ulta. So that is going to round up my Chanel Sublimage Foundation review. I hope that I explained everything to you. I hope I answered any of your questions. I know sometimes I forget to go over everything, so please don't hesitate to put it down in the comment section. If I did skip over something, I would love to be able to answer it if I can. Be sure and subscribe before you leave, because I don't want you to miss out on any future videos. I do have a couple other foundations that I'm going to start testing out for y'all, and I don't want you to miss out. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very blessed day.